This is the Moonlight Graham Show, a freewheeling conversation with the role players, the underdogs, and guys with flat-out great stories in sports.
Hello and welcome back to the Moonlight Graham Show, where we celebrate the role players and the underdogs in sports. And our Moonlighter for today is one of the most decorated high school basketball coaches in the entire country. He is currently in his 37th season coaching high school hoops here in the great state of Iowa. His career record coming into this season was 707 wins to 171 losses. So if you do the math at home, and I know you guys are all smart out there, he could lose over 500 consecutive games and still be an over 500 coach. His name is Mitch Osborn. Mitch Osborn, who is the father of a Moonlighter. We have featured his son, Joel Osborn, who was a great athlete and a great coach in his own right. Mitch Osborn is the current head coach at Harlan over in southwest Iowa. Harlan has been his third stop on his coaching career. He started off at a tiny school called Elk Horn-Kimballton. He moved on to the great Pomeroy-Palmer, where he succeeded Alden Skinner. He went from Pomeroy-Palmer to Harlan, where he has been for some time there. There was a stretch from 1989 to 1998, 10 seasons, where Osborn took 9 teams to the state tournament for 3 different schools. So he started off his state tournament run with Elk Horn, then he moved on to Pomeroy-Palmer, where essentially he never missed a state tournament, moved on, kept the streak going for Harlan, where he went 2 out of 3 years at Harlan, his first 2 out of 3 years there. The guy has won wherever he's gone. He's truly, if you start digging through the coaching records in the state of Iowa, it is remarkable how successful Osborn has been. And sometimes I think it might get overlooked. Like, he's been in 19 state tournaments in 36 full seasons. He's won 3 state titles, one in 1994 with Greg Helmers at Pomeroy-Palmer, and then he won when his son Joel was a senior in 2004, and another one in 2006 when another one of his sons was a senior, Kevin. But it's gone a little bit overlooked because Harlan itself has had so much success in all the sports. If you look at it, whether it's baseball, whether it's football, whether it's basketball, it seems like Harlan is always there as one of the top programs in the state, no matter what sport is being played. And they've had legendary coaches in every one of those sports. For so many years in football, it was Kurt Bladt. Kurt Bladt, is on the Mount Rushmore of Iowa high school football coaches. He won like 411 games during his time coaching Harlan. I think he won double-digit state titles. Then you had Steve Degas, was a legendary baseball coach for Harlan baseball, and he had raised a couple of great sons as athletes who were both great Division I baseball players. And then you had Osborn on the basketball court. So I think some of those guys actually overshadowed each other because there was this thing that, hey, it just must be in the water down there in southwest Iowa that they've got all these great athletes. But it's really a testament to these coaches, whether it was Osborn, whether it was Davis or Blatt, learning from one another and ultimately working together to make all of their programs better. And I think that's something that is truly commendable that they've created down there in Harlan, and they still have so much success today. I mean, Mitch Osborn is still a pretty young guy. You'd expect a guy like that has 700-plus high school wins to be old and gray and ratchety. You look at Mitch Osborn, the guy looks as good today as he did 10, 15 years ago. And he's a guy that I've always admired in how he runs his program and how he has had consistent success year in and year out. So it was a real treat to get him on the podcast to talk about his career, not only at Harlan, but also Pomeroy-Palmer and Elk Horn-Kimballton before that. And what's interesting is you look back at his career, he's been in 19 state tournaments. I was almost expecting him to have more state titles. I mean, he's won 3 of them, and it's tough to win any of them, right? It's tough to get one, which, as other coaches that we've had here on the podcast can attest to. But the interesting thing is he won his first state title in 1994. His next one when Joel was a senior, and then his son Joel, and then the next one after that, his last one, was 16 years or 17 years ago in 2006 when his son Kevin was a senior. So he's been at Harlan with a lot of success for a long time now. And the only 2 state titles he's won, and I say only 2, I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, are when his boys, 2 of his boys, were seniors, so it begs the question, was he coaching his son's teams different than some of the other teams? I'm slightly kidding there, but it is interesting how that works out. But this was a true treat to have Mitch on the podcast. As you guys well know, I really, really admire the Harlan community. Not only is it a great farming community, but the people down there are great. The school system takes a lot of pride in it. And I think a lot of that comes out through this conversation with Mitch. And I think you guys are really going to love this episode here with Mitch Osborn. So enjoy today's episode with Moonlighter Mitch Osborn.
Moonlighters, are you or someone you know moving down to Kansas City? Well, if you are, the one realtor that we trust and that you need to be calling is the great Brian Sandvig. As you well know, Brian Sandvig is our producer here on the podcast, and there is not a better residential real estate advisor down in the Kansas City marketplace than Brian Sandvig. Call Brian Sandvig, shoot him a text. Hey, DM us on social media. We'll get you connected with Brian if you can't find him on all the socials, but he is there and he is active, and he is your Kansas City realtor, so give him a call.
So, Coach, you've been in the Harlan community for a lot of years now. When you walk around Harlan, what percentage of people in town call you Coach as opposed to Mitch?
That's interesting. You just asked that question. It's a lot of coach. It's a lot of coach. And, the players, obviously, I've been here since 1997, and a lot of players, I'm coaching their kids now. And that's amazing to think but it's still pretty much coach. That's just how it is.
Harlan community, you guys have had success in every sport. Obviously, you've had tons of success in basketball, but football, baseball, track and field, boys, girls, you name it. Harlan has had success really over the past 25 years since you've been there. What is it about Harlan that just breeds success and athletic prowess?
I think it's a combination. We got some outstanding coaches. We got hardworking kids. They're multi-sport athletes. I think that's the biggest thing is we don't have the kids specializing. They might specialize in one sport where their passion is, but they're out for other sports, two or three sports to help the other teammates. And I think our community sport is tremendous. And most importantly, our parental support is dynamite. We are our parents let our coaches coach. And in this day and age, it's very sometimes you don't see that. Our coaches they have high expectations and they push our student athletes, and our parents they like it. And but times have changed. I remember my younger years when I was at Elk Horn-Kimballton and Pomeroy-Palmer. I was a little more excitable, probably a little more intense. But as a coach, once you start having kids of your own, and especially you got grandkids, you understand the old school ways of coaching is really. I'm not a big fan of it. I know I did a lot of more screaming and hollering, and it was ridiculous when I look back on it. But right now, I think I've made adjustments, and especially at Harlan, I think the big thing is for me the success we've all had. When I was AD, when I started out in 98, we really wanted to exemplify and emulate our football program and Coach Bladt. And there was no jealousy. The thing is, you want to raise your level of your program to his level. And that's hard to attain, but, I think that's a great goal. And what a mentor and a great guy he was to follow.
So you mentioned you used to be a little bit more old school and the yelling and screaming. Was coaching your own kids the biggest change to get away from that? Or was it just age? Because a lot of times when people get older, they just mellow out a little bit.
I think you hit it, age. I think probably myself coaching my own son, I think I made a transition in probably 2003-4 to about 4 or 5, somewhere in there. But Joel graduated in 2004, Kevin in 2006, and then Zach in 2012. And I was probably harder on my own kids. Obviously, I think I was than the other players. But my, they accepted it, and we had a great relationship. And, I was fortunate enough, obviously I coached basketball, but two of my sons went on to play college football. Joel at Northwest Missouri State, played quarterback there. Zach was a 3-year starter quarterback at Wayne State. And then Kevin went to Benya Vista and played basketball for VH, Brian Van Haften. So it was a great run and a lot of fun coaching my sons. And I tell coaches, if you got the opportunity to coach your son, I've heard guys say, "Oh, I'm going to get out so I don't have to coach my son." No, I just completely disagree. It's the best years of your life, coaching your own son.
Were there some tough nights at home, though, when you're coaching your own kid?
Yeah, my wife is shaking her head yes right now. But you know what? We were winning a lot of games. I say Joel's senior year, we were 27-0. State champs. Joel, Zach, it'd be Kevin's senior year in 06. We were 27-0, and that was a state title of the year also. So that was pretty special. And so there wasn't too much to come home disagreements about. I do remember some times when Kevin was a sophomore and his group was sort of the scout team, and Joel was a senior. And I was told guys, when one of those guys, the top guys, is going up for a shot, you don't come underneath them. You stay away from ankles. And I remember one time Kevin got real close, and I basically told him, "You're lucky if he'd have sprained his ankle, you'd have been banned from the team for the rest of the year." And obviously, I didn't mean it, but at the time, got pretty excited.
Now, when somebody plays a Mitch Osborn coached team, what are they going to see?
Well, I think I'm pretty proud of the fact is, we're going to play hard and intense. I believe we're going to play as hard as we can. And I also think we're going to be poised, show poise on the floor. I think that's a key. So we always talk about that, and being a great teammate. And so, I think that's what everybody tries to do. And most of the time it works out. Sometimes you get little bumps in the road, but I've been very fortunate.
What coach, I know coaches steal from other coaches, right? There's very few new ideas in sports. Which coach have you stolen the most from?
For basketball, really coaching basketball, it was Alden Skinner. I was at Elk Horn-Kimballton when 84 through 90, and he was the head coach there. And I remember in 86, I was third year coaching, called Alden, and I watched him at the state tournament, and everybody talked about the 3-point shooting, how great they were there. But I was impressed with their defense. I think they were underrated. They're a great defensive team. And, but Coach Skinner talked to him about the youth program, and he really he said, that's what you got to do, plant the seeds and really get the youth program going. And then you can reap the harvest after when they're older. And that's been a key. And, offensively, letting kids have the free flow, not dictating so much, letting them go and letting them play. And so Coach Skinner, but there's other ones. Coach Frank Nelson, my high school coach, was a longtime coach at Avoca. You got Carl Cohen at Tri-Center, Jerry Christian at Trainer, Dave Lansing, my predecessor here at Harlan Community. He was a great coach. So I think he really helped me a lot when I was at Elk Horn-Kimballton. So they all did, and here's a trivia question. I know there's a lot. I know this is 2022, but back when Coach Skinner in 1989-90, his last game he ever coached is when I was coached against him, and I was at Pomeroy-Palmer. We played each other in sub-state finals at Denison, and we were fortunate to come out on top and beat them. And then when we got back from the state tournament, that's when Coach Skinner called me and wanted me to come up and succeed him as the head coach at Pomeroy-Palmer. It was their second year in together, but the cupboard was not bare when I got there, believe me. Tons of talent. And I've been very fortunate because when I came to Harlan Community, tons of talent. It wasn't like I had to build a program, but we really wanted to set it at a new level and a new standard, and we've had a good run here at Harlan.
What's that like coming into Alden Skinner's shoes? I mean, still to this day, those Palmer teams and the Pomeroy-Palmer teams after them are pretty legendary within the state. And so Alden Skinner calls you up to succeed him, and he's one of the most legendary names in basketball. And you always hear, like, you never want to be the guy that replaces the legend because the expectations are so high. What was that like coming in and trying to fill his shoes?
Well, we had such a great relationship. But when he called, I told him, no, we got back to state tournament. We got third. I said, I'm going to stay at Elk Horn-Kimballton. I'm very happy. This is at 9 a.m. At noon, he calls me back. And, Coach Skinner, if you knew Coach Skinner, he says, Mitch, and he said a couple other words after that. He said, you're going to come up and you're going to see me. You're going to tell me, we're going to chat and talk. And then you can tell me face to face, and give you a couple of days. And then you can tell me no. I said, that's fair enough, Coach. And so my wife and I and Nancy went up there. We were on our way up there. It said 10% chance we'll take the job. And we're driving home. It's 50%. And 2 days later, actually a day later, I called him and accepted the job. I just was a great stepping stone for my career. Elk Horn-Kimballton was great. Loved it there. And they had a lot of good talent coming back also. But I knew that I was ready for another challenge. But to answer your question on that, Coach Skinner was still the superintendent there. So that really, to me, was a. Some people say, oh, he's looking over your shoulder. He wasn't. He was great to have. And I'd go in, and he was a great mentor and could ask him questions. And we didn't change anything. I just kept doing what he was doing. And that's the key. We didn't make any wholesale changes. I think that would have been a huge mistake. And, so we won that first year in triple overtime sub-state. Beat Schleswig at Denison. And, I did feel there was a little pressure. But, we made state tournament 6 out of my 7 years there. Like I said, we had a lot of talent. And the other year we didn't make it. We lost a heartbreaker. And it was us and Newell Fonda. We had great rivalry and great games. But it was a great time. And I got to coach Mark Pearson, who was Brian Pearson's younger brother, and David Pearson. And then I also, T.J. Martin, Richie Martin. Names are synonymous with the Palmer teams. And then you had the Pomeroy was a great basketball program. So, and then obviously you got to come in there with the guys there. And, and then obviously you got Greg Helmers. Who knew that kid was going to go from a 6'4" freshman to 6'11" as a junior? And so all of a sudden that makes you a real good coach at that time, Tim. So when you got athletes and players like that.
Coach, what's a drill that you were doing 30 years ago that you're still doing with your teams today?
Well, we do what I call it's called Jayhawk drill, and got that from Larry Brown at a clinic. And it combines pivot. It combines every fundamental. You got rebounding, you got pivoting, reverse pivoting, passing, bounce passing. You're shooting a layup, or you can shoot a pull-up jumper. So that was one I love, and we've continued to do. And obviously we do what I call a 14-minute shooting drill. And that's one really I got from Alden, and we incorporated it, and we do use that for a 3-point shooting drill. You have kids pre-shoot. We like to do our post moves. I take the guards and have my assistants take the post. And so we've done those. The Jayhawk drill is only a 5-minute drill, 4 to 5 minute drill. And our shooting drill that we do each and every day is 14 minutes. So that's something we've done each and every day. One thing I think I've learned and improved on when I came to Harlan Community is watching Coach Kurt Bladt coach practice. I was AD, so I would just go to practice just to watch him and what he did. And what I loved what he did was a lot more reps of actual live scrimmage game type things. And I think too many times basketball coaches, we think we do all these different drills each and every day, or they get old and they get stale. And I think repetition, watching Coach Bladt, is far from that. I think the repetition of doing the same fundamentals and continue to work on it each and every day, but doing a lot more live scrimmaging, full court up and down for basketball. He does it in football, and we put that in basketball. And I think really that took us to another level, took me to another level as a coach and at Harlan Community.
What's your favorite road gym to play in?
Oh man, I don't think I got a favorite. I don't think I like playing on the road at all. I love playing at home, but and I always tell our guys that if you go on the road and win any game on the road is a big win. And I think Kemper is always it's a fun. They got great teams, got so much respect, and their fans are very knowledgeable in basketball and very intense. And it's great. It's a great rivalry, and we get after it. So that atmosphere is probably one of the toughest ones. So I say it's still fun to go up there. and that to be in that type of a game night because they're into it. Denison's another one just up the road that's always a packed gym. Kemper's always a packed gym. In Atlantic, we've had some great games in the past, so those are battles too. But obviously, home court in basketball is a huge advantage. You always shoot about 10% better, I think, from the arc at home versus on the road.
So you've won state championships at both Old Vets and also Wells Fargo Arena. Myself, I've got a soft spot for Old Vets because that was my era, but you've had success in both of them. Compare and contrast the two for me.
I when we were leaving Vets and going to the Wells Fargo, I was like, oh, I wish we weren't doing that. I wish we were staying put. And it was in 2006. That was Kevin's senior year. And I believe that was the first or second year we were in Wells because we won the state title in 94, actually in 1994, Pomeroy-Palmer, and then 2004 when Joel was a senior at Vets. Vets was a little more cozier. Yeah, that's okay. And that was a little more cozier. The fans are right on top, more at Vets, a little more raucous. It seemed like a little louder. Wells Fargo, though, it's an incredible facility, and what a great move. I look back on it now, it was a great move. We've got to play a lot of games there, state tournaments throughout the years. And the locker rooms are spacious and very nice. The Vets auditorium locker rooms, not so much. But it's just a nicer facility. And like I said, we got the great memory in 06, but 07, we lost our heartbreaker to Heelan at the buzzer in the semis. And we were undefeated at the time. I thought we had a state title team that year. And then 08, we had Dan Hoke, who was the Gatorade Player of the Year in football, also basketball, Kyle Hakey, a lot of great athletes. And that's when Eric May hit the half-court shot. We tied it with 2 seconds left, and they got it to him at half-court. He hits, to this day, SSA, he traveled, and he also stepped out of bounds, which we got a picture, still photo of it, but it got missed, and he makes a half-court shot. How many times you think that's going to happen? Never. State title game, hits a half-court shot. We lose the state title on that when you think it's going to overtime. So there's some heartbreakers, but, hey, we've had a lot of great memories, and I sound like I'm very, very spoiled. I've been fortunate to be in the state tournament 20 times in my career, and, it's been a great run.
Is the Eric May half-quarter, is that the toughest loss that you've had?
That was an extremely tough one because our kids, we were big time underdog in that state title game, Dubuque Wahlert, and we played a junk defense on him. We did a great job. They had a couple other very, very good players, and that was hard to take. It was hard. You go in the locker room and trying to console the players, and it was a tough one. But I'd say if you're going to lose a game, losing a game at the state tournament and Wells Fargo, I always said that's good. If you're going to lose, that's a good place to lose. The sub-state, when you get a sub-state final and you lose that sub-state final, those are tough ones, especially when they're heartbreakers. And I've been fortunate to come out on top in a lot of those, but I've lost a couple sub-state finals, and those are tough ones to lose.
So, Coach, here on the pod, we're all about the underdogs and the role players. So how do you coach sometimes that 8th or 9th guy? Like if you got a 7-man rotation or an 8-man rotation, sometimes there's an odd man out. And sometimes it's, a kid that you really want to get minutes to, but just because of the way the game works and because there's only 5 guys that can play at a time, those guys, sometimes their minutes can get cut. How do you keep those guys engaged and keep their attitudes good throughout a long season?
You bring up a good point. And, I think one thing is you have little talks with them, telling them how they're doing a great job. They are, but, that's where they're at right now. And, but the thing is they're a sprained ankle away or an injury away. And you don't want anybody to get injured, but they got to be ready. And I always tell them on the bench to be mentally prepared, because something can happen. And all of a sudden, I'll call your number. Last night we played Kemper in a makeup game action that was at our place. And we basically this year got it right now, a 7-man rotation. It depends. I like to go 8, but we really don't have that 8th guy ready. And so anyway, we're 7, but actually the second half we went basically with 6. my seventh man. He came in the first half, did a great job, gave us a boost, had 6 points, but he only got to play about a minute and a half, 2 minutes of the second half. And, I made sure and touch base with him after the game and told him, hey, things were going so good. And he said, Coach, as long as I completely get it. And he was good. And there's other games he comes in and he plays more than sometimes the starter does, so it just sort of depends how people are performing. But I think as coaches, you got to talk to them. Players can't read your mind. And I think it's very, very important, that communication to do.
Well, Coach, I know you got a lot going on, but thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to jump on the podcast today, especially mid-season. So best of luck to the Harlan Cyclones the rest of the way. And hopefully, you're feeling a lot better right now too than you were a couple of weeks ago.
I appreciate it very much. And it's great to be on here, and brings back, I love getting back on that, talking the Pomeroy-Palmer days and my Elk Horn-Kimballton when I first started. But I got such a great, Pomeroy-Palmer was such a great 7 years, and never thought we'd be leaving. But Harlan called, and it was a great move. Could not turn it down. I got to coach some great players at Harlan in the past, but I appreciate the being on the show, and it's a fun show to listen to. And thank you very much.
You bet. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with Mitch Osborn. And as I talked about in the intro, I've always admired the amount of athletes, the amount of success that Harlan has had. And I was walking through Harlan High School one time, and, they've got one of these walls that has all of the records and leaderboards through the years. And, there's a lot of very impressive records, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, track and field, that are up on that wall. But the one that really caught my eye was, if you look at the baseball pitching records, most of those records go back to the mid-'70s, where a guy by the name of Kurt Kaufman was pitching. And Kurt Kaufman was from a small town called Westphalia, Iowa, which feeds into the Harlan Community School District. And this guy was a great high school baseball player. And then after high school, I don't know Kurt's story all that well. I'd love to have him here on the podcast, but I know he spent some time, I think, at Indian Hills Community College, spent some time at Iowa State, and had a ton of talent, but he wasn't a great college player from what I understand, but ends up getting signed and going through the minor league system with the Yankees. And I don't know if it was a story I was reading one time or a book I was reading, but one time I was reading a story about the time that Don Mattingly got called up to the major leagues. And so Don Mattingly and Kurt Kaufman are kind of around that same age, but I was reading this story and it kind of caught me off guard because it was the story of Don Mattingly getting called up to the bigs. And so Mattingly was in AAA with the Columbus for the Yankees at the time, and they were playing on the East Coast, not far away from New York, and Don Mattingly gets the call to go up to the big leagues for the first time ever. And another guy gets called up along with them. And at that time, they didn't have time to get a flight, and ultimately all they had to do was just rent a car and make like a 5-hour drive from wherever they're at to New York City in Yankee Stadium to play for the Yankees that following day, to put on their pinstripes. And in the article, or the book that I was reading, I wish I could remember where I found this, Mattingly continues to talk about on that road trip, him and this other guy, they were playing the tunes, they were having the time of their lives, they were talking about the future that awaited for them playing for the Yankees. And it comes out that the guy he was driving with was Kurt Kaufman from Westphalia, from Harlan. And I just found that so interesting, that what a moment in time that Mattingly still remembers today. Mattingly, is a guy that borderline Hall of Famer, probably should be in. Injuries cut his career a little bit short. At one time, he was just a promising minor leaguer, just like Kurt Kaufman was. And now most people don't know who Kurt Kaufman is, and Don Mattingly is Donnie Baseball, right? One of the most famous Yankees of all time. And I would love to have Kaufman here on the pod. Kaufman goes on to pitch parts of 3 seasons, 2 of which with the Yankees, another one with the Angels, pitched in 40 major league games, parts of 3 seasons. I would take that any day I could, but he wasn't Don Mattingly. But for that moment in time, that car ride, I'd love to be a fly on the wall or have a recording of that. And I'm sure it's something that maybe Kaufman and Mattingly both talked about often. I know Kaufman later had a son, Taylor Kaufman, who's a pretty good baseball player in his own right. I think he's a little bit younger than me. He played ball at Iowa as well. So I'd love to have maybe Taylor and Kurt both on someday. So anyway, if you've got a Kurt Kaufman story or one like it, let us know. Anyways, have a great week. Moonlighters, thanks for listening to today's episode. Special thanks to the Moonlight Graham Show team, Tommy, Brian, Andy, Neil, and of course, Brendan Gargano. Have a great week. Love you guys.
It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. It's a pretty good program, broadcasting to the heartland. Sports stories for the everyman. It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. Please follow us on Instagram. You're loving us on Twitter too. You download every pod we do. It's Moonlight Graham.